June 4, 1942. 7 a.m. Central Pacific Admiral Taman Yamaguchi paces the bridge of the Japanese aircraft carrier Hiryū, tense and alert. Today he commands not just the Hiryū, but also the Soryu, forming part of Japan's elite carrier strike force, the Kido Butai, alongside the Akagi and Kaga. It is the pivotal moment of Japan's ambitious Midway operation, and already, 108 aircraft have launched a bombing raid on the U.S. base at Midway Atoll. But the mission hasn't gone as planned. The Hiryū's captain, Tomeo Kaku, approaches Yamaguchi with grim news from Admiral Nagumo, who oversees the operation. We failed to destroy key targets on the island. Moments later, alarms blare. American planes launched from the still functional Midway base are inbound. Japanese Zero fighters scramble to intercept the attackers. Without fighter escort, the American torpedo bombers are cut down ruthlessly. A few manage to release their payloads. Torpedoes starboard, but fortune favors the Japanese. Every torpedo misses. With Midway still operational, Nagumo orders preparations for a second strike on the island. Ready the reserve aircraft for a new attack on Midway Ire. The aircraft are loaded with armor-piercing bombs and torpedoes for attacking ships. We need to rearm them for land targets. Frantic rearming begins. 30 minutes later, only half the aircraft have been converted, leaving the Kido Butai unprepared for a naval threat. Worse still, the hangars are now cluttered with explosives, making the carriers dangerously vulnerable. Then, a chilling report arrives, sir. Our scout plane reports what appears to be 10 enemy surface ships. The sighting is vague, but any enemy presence at sea is a threat. Nagumo issues a new order: postpone the Midway strike and retain ship targeting weapons on all aircraft not yet rearmed. Precious time has been wasted. The Kido Butai now finds itself trapped between conflicting strategies. Stop rearming. Prepare for ship attack. Even as plans shift, American aircraft keep coming. Japanese anti-aircraft guns light up the skies, swatting down attackers with deadly precision. But despite the defense, the Hiryū suffers near misses. Yamaguchi grows increasingly frustrated. The other carriers remain idle while Hiryū bears the brunt of the assault. Send a message to Nagumo. Advise immediate launch of strike group, but it's too late. The aircraft from the earlier Midway strike return and must be recovered immediately. For over 30 minutes, carrier decks are consumed by the exhausting process of recovering and refueling aircraft. More American bombers. This time, they're different. These planes are from American aircraft carriers. The U.S. Navy has found them. Zeros rush to intercept. Japanese pilots display masterful skill, gunning down torpedo bombers in droves. But a handful get through and launch their torpedoes. Again, Japanese ships evade them with expert maneuvers, though the fleet's formation is shattered in the process. Here's momentary relief, even celebration, as the threat appears neutralized. But Yamaguchi remains uneasy. At 10:22 a.m., he looks skyward and sees a nightmare. Nearly 50 U.S. Navy SBD Dauntless dive bombers appear overhead. All Japanese fighters are still engaged below, mopping up the last of the torpedo bombers. Nothing remains to stop the dive bombers now descending from the heavens. Yamaguchi watches helplessly as 3 waves of Dauntless bombers dive onto the Japanese carriers. Kaga is the first target, her hangar decks packed with fuel and ordnance. She erupts in flames as multiple bombs hit their mark. Seconds later, Soryu is struck by another group of bombers. Then comes the Akagi, Admiral Nagumo's flagship. Only 3 bombers dive on her, but 1 bomb hits dead center, penetrating the flight deck and triggering secondary explosions. Within minutes, 3 of Japan's 4 elite carriers are burning wrecks. Only the Hiryū remains. Despite the devastation, Yamaguchi retains his resolve. A message arrives from the light cruiser Nagara. Admiral Nagumo has survived and relocated his command. Yamaguchi, now the highest-ranking officer on a functioning carrier, rallies his men. Officers, though wounded, we are not finished. We will strike back with everything we have. He orders 2 counterattacks. The first wave will consist of dive bombers, the second of torpedo bombers. At 11 a.m., 24 aircraft lift off from the Hiryū. Lieutenant Michio Kobayashi leads the dive bombers. On their way, They encounter American fighters. The Japanese escorting Zeros peel off to engage, leaving the bombers exposed. At 11:55 a.m., Kobayashi spots an American carrier, the USS Yorktown. He splits his formation into 2 squadrons and initiates the attack. But before they can dive, 12 US F-4F Wildcats intercept them. The result is carnage. Without fighter protection, Japanese aircraft are torn from the sky. Of 18 dive bombers, only 10 survive long enough to reach the target. Kobayashi leads the attack himself, but is killed in the assault. Still, 3 bombs hit the Yorktown. 1 punches through the hangar deck, 1 explodes near the island, and another detonates deep in the hull. Encouraged by the damage inflicted, Yamaguchi orders a second wave. Lieutenant Joichi Tomonaga is chosen to lead the torpedo attack. His own plane, damaged in the morning's Midway raid, is barely airworthy. The fuel tanks leak. Engineers warn it's a one-way trip. "I can make it on 1 tank. Let me go," Tomonaga insists. At 1:30 p.m., Tomonaga's squadron locates a carrier group. Ironically, the target they find is again the Yorktown, which has been temporarily patched up. Tomonaga splits his squadron in 2 for a pincer attack. As he approaches, his aircraft is struck and catches fire. Yet he presses on, releasing his torpedo before crashing into the sea. His torpedo misses. The second group of torpedo bombers scores 2 devastating hits. The Yorktown loses power and begins to list. Mission accomplished. The surviving aircraft return to the Hiryū. Yamaguchi believes 2 American carriers have now been neutralized. He plans a 3rd strike for 6 p.m., but disaster strikes before the plan can be executed. T3:50 p.m., a scout plane reports another American carrier force, 120 miles to the northwest. Minutes later, at 5 p.m., 24 American dive bombers appear over the Hiryū. 6 Dauntless bombers dive in first. The ship evades, then come 14 more. 2 bombs hit the forward flight deck. 3 more aircraft dive. 2 additional bombs strike the ship. Fires erupt uncontrollably. By 9:23 p.m., the Hiryū drifts, crippled. Yamaguchi refuses to abandon ship. This was the Hiryū's last stand and Yamaguchi's final command. The Battle of Midway would prove to be a turning point in the Pacific War, where 4 of Japan's finest carriers were lost in a single day. But the legacy of their crews endures, etched into the tides of history.